All right, 2 p.m. Central African time. Thank you for choosing us this afternoon. You're watching Market View. This is the Monday edition. Ahead on the show today, Eswatini just hosted its own spin on the deep learning Indaba. It is called the Indaba X. It is a tech meetup, yes, but it's also a calculated move that is going to plug Eswatini into Africa's growing artificial intelligence ecosystem. We want to understand, what is the end game? Are we building a pipeline of young AI talent, or laying the groundwork for a national innovation agenda? But more importantly, who gets through the door when the opportunities like these come around? We'll speak to Dr. Metula from the University of Eswatini. We're going to connect with him virtually via our Zoom video link. But before all of that, let's look at our business news today. In our first story, the Eswatini Bankers Association says the electronic Know Your Customer system, which is poised to be introduced in Eswatini as announced by the Deputy Governor Felicia Gunene, is going to boost trade and ensure that Eswatini complies with international anti-money laundering laws. The Chief Executive Officer, Zakhele Lukhele, says this system will also ensure cross-border identification verification.
The Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Eswatini says beyond banking, the Know Your Customer system will make it easier for citizens to access government programs and benefits securely. She says it will also provide law enforcement and security agencies with a powerful tool to identify and investigate financial crimes, thereby protecting national security. The Chief Executive Officer of the Eswatini Bankers Association, Zakhele Lukhele, shares his insights on the electronic Know Your Customer system.
In terms of assisting the financial institutions, I think it will be much easier to onboard people because we have the information within structured institutions and in a structured manner. Once we have agreed as to which information forms the basis for such verification. Therefore, we think it will be of assistance, especially for as we trade amongst each other. It will facilitate that we can trade without having to push around the laws of paper in order to comply with the different laws that govern payments across borders. And then it will also assist people who do remittances across the border, so we can comply with the international laws that govern anti-money laundering. We have seen some countries being blacklisted or being put under the grey, and what we call the grey listing, which means they've been restricted from performing some transactions internationally. So this will enable countries to comply much easily by us having information in a streamlined and more accessible manner. It's not only personal information. I think it will also onboard companies and other institutions so that the data is easily available.
The Deputy Governor says the initiative is aimed at exploring the feasibility of a regional Know Your Customer registry that will enable secure, real-time cross-border identity verification, thus allowing to develop a cross-border payments infrastructure in the SADC region to advance financial inclusion, efficiency, and security. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla for Inkosinzi Nisa Mbabane.
The Public Service Pensions Fund has detailed a number of projects that are set to make a massive impact on economic development. This exciting revelation was made by Musa Hlachwago, who is the Director of Investment, during the recent Stakeholder Engagement Forum.
Is the Lower Makutuza hydropower station, which is under construction at Sitogoto. The board is intentional about participating in energy self-sustenance in Eswatini, as we are aware that there are challenges with energy in the country. So that's a 1.3 billion project, which we are doing together with Old Mutual, Eswatini. Then the next one is EEC, some funding to EEC for them to do Lower Makuga project. So there will be a project that will come through at Makuka, and also a distribution of, expansion of distribution lines for EEC. So this is more of a 470 million project, which the fund is participating in. Board is intentional about participating in energy self-sustenance. Then there are other high priority sectors which we have identified through studying our economy in Eswatini to see which sectors are of high profile, of high impact in Eswatini. And one of them is education, health, energy, ICT, and many others. So the board has been intentional about investing in Nkonyeni. Hope many of you have seen that school is along in Hlangano, Manzini Road. So there's a boarding school that has been put out there. So we've got a 40% equity stake in that. And also the board is intentional about investing in agriculture. So we've set out our agriculture strategy so that we can participate in food self-sustenance as a country. And that is to say, we would like to be seen to be growing grains being beans and maize meal. So we believe that the Swaziland Milling Company will be one vehicle that we will use, to participate in the entire value chain for providing that self-sustenance in the country. So we've also acquired the bridge. We've got a 50% equity stake there. There's some flats at Eswatini or in Eswatini, and then that new building in Spofaneni, for those who have passed through there, the fund is an equity stakeholder, the 50% equity stakeholder. And you will notice that in most of these investments, we do not participate as a 100% equity owner. And basically the reason is we want to take along with the experts in that, or the entrepreneurs who are experts in that particular field.
We have our interview after the break, but that marks the end of our business news segment. Dr. Metula from the University of Eswatini in conversation with us shortly.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Right, welcome back. You're still watching Market View, the Monday edition. The Eswatini FinTech Working Group held the Indaba X, a locally organized version of the Deep Learning Indaba. It aims to strengthen machine learning and artificial intelligence communities across Africa through knowledge sharing, networking, and collaboration. We want to understand what the long-term aim of the Indaba X is and how does the Eswatini FinTech Working Group select its participants. participants. To answer these questions, we are now joined by Dr. Andile Methula, who is from the University of Eswatini, one of the key partners of the working group. A very good afternoon, Mr. Methula. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for your time. He joins us virtually. We do want to emphasize that, I suppose, Mr. Methula, just appreciating, the undertaking of this development. The first question would be appreciating, could you explain what it is and what its main objectives are within the context of the Kingdom of Eswatini?
Okay, greetings, Fiso, and greetings to your viewers at home. Indaba X, Ngumalo started in 2018. Its main aim, it's a locally organized meeting, but it's organized all over the continent. So what happens is that all the African countries, almost all the African countries, they have their own version of Indaba X. And it is meant to promote machine learning. It is meant to promote AI in the African continent. Last month, what happened was that there was the main Indaba. It was held in Rwanda, in Kigali. But the main objective is to promote AI in the African continent. You are well aware, Ngumaro, that the continent has been left out in previous industrial revolutions before, and we do not want that to happen again. So that is why, as academics, as partners, we've come together to promote this in our continent and in our country.
Yeah, but what inspired it for the Kingdom of Eswatini?
Okay, what happened in 2018, one of the things that we've realized as UNESCO and with our partners is the fact that it's not everything that we can cover in class. There are things that our students need from industry. There are things that our students cannot get in the classroom. So that is why we started this. AI, of course, is taught in class, but it's taught in an academic setting. What we do in class is that we share theory, we teach theory. Yes, we do practicals, but what we wanted to do with the partners when we started our version of Indaba X, we wanted our students, our learners to get a practical experience and use real life data to explore some of the problems that they are now exploring.
And therefore, one wants to then understand institutions or stakeholders that are all involved in the making of this event. And
there are 7. Okay. That organize this event. The Eswatini FinTech Working Group, it's a consortium that started in 2019. So it's 7 partners. It's UNESCO, it's the Central Bank of Eswatini, it's SCCOM, it's CFI, the Center for Financial Inclusion, FSRA, ERS, RSTP. It's those 7 partners. So what those partners do is that they come together to organize this event, and then we share tasks. For example, some partners, they provide the data set. Others, they provide the venue, like your ERS. Others will provide the prize money. So I'm not going to say who does what, but that is how we organize the event. We just share the responsibilities, and then we organize the event.
And then from the participants' point of view, how do you select those, students, young innovators, and perhaps, there's other things that are done there, like your hackathons and your poster invitations. How do you select those students and participants?
Great question. What we do, Ngumara, is that we don't select people that come for these events. These are open events. What we do is we do an open invitation. We send out a poster. We send out an invitation to young people, to tertiary institutions, for them to join or to participate. So what they do using a link, they register for the event. And when they do the registration, they indicate if they want to be part of the hackathon or they want to be part of the poster presentation, or even both. So we are not selective, because at the end of the day, what we are seeking to do as EFWG, it is to promote this all over the country, if possible. And that is our goal, just to promote AI all over the Kingdom of Eswatini without leaving anyone out.
Yeah. Let's get to the crux of it all. I understand the ambition is to find solutions. So what types of innovations or solutions were presented this year?
Okay, the Indaba X is in fourfold. I just want to make our viewers understand. It's in fourfold. So what happens on the first day is that there are presentations. This year we even had a panel presentation. So the presentations and the panel presentations are just general. They just focus on AI. And maybe to take you back, the theme this year was big data analytics for strategic decision making. So that was the theme this year. So the panel discussion was centered around that, and the presentations that were made in the beginning were centered around that. And then after that, what happens is we then present the problem that is going to be looked at, that is going to be solved during the hackathon. And then after that, we then have the poster presentation. So at the end of the day, what we try to do, we do not try to be exclusive. Coming to the problems that were presented, there were 10. I'll just highlight a few during the poster presentation. Some were looking at using AI for people living with disabilities. Some were looking at the performance of loans, how the non-performance of loans affects the economy. Some were looking at inflation. There was a number of problems. And you'd be surprised, no matter how intelligent, how smart our kids are, the kinds of the problems, the kinds of innovations, the kinds of solutions that they are seeking to come up with. They are very, 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 very smart. And the good thing now, what I'm saying, having seen this for the past 7-8 years, it's the quality of the solutions that our students, our young people are coming up with. They're getting there. And in fact, very soon we will have international solutions that can sell in the international stage. And then we move on to the hackathon. The hackathon this year, what it's going to do, it's going to end, by the way, on the 17th of November. Stage 1 is going to close on October 17, and then stage 2 is going to close November 17. The problem that they will be looking at, they are looking at inflation prediction. We want our kids to be able to predict inflation 60 days in advance, 2 months in advance. Inflation, it affects a lot of things, prices, you name it. So that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to give our kids practical experience, let them use the skills, the AI skills, the coding skills that they have to solve real life problems. And in this case, of course, what they're doing is they're focusing on economic problems.
And it sounds very inclusive as well, which is cool. And, very smart, groundbreaking ideas, if I decipher from what you're telling me. But I do want to understand which of these projects emerged as the winners.
I'm not going to share. We haven't shared because what we will have normally around towards the end of November, we will then do the announcement. What we've done now is that we've just listened to the presentations, but the participants are unaware of the winners at the moment. So that is going to be presented by the principals of the 7 partners towards the end of November.
I'm sure you have formulated structures that look into supporting the eventual winners beyond the event. Is that it? Is that so?
That's true. In fact, that's the whole idea, Dwando. That's the whole idea. See, the data set that we are using this year, it comes from one of the partners. Remember, I said we have UNESCO, CPE, FSRA. All these are regulators. All these, well, UNESCO is not a regulator, but most of the partners, they are regulators. And what we are looking to do is we are looking to give our kids real life problems that once probably they solve can be absorbed and even used by the host institution or by the institution that provided the data set. So that is what we are looking to do. We are moving away from class projects. Normally, we don't want our kids to do class projects. A class project meaning something that you just dream of and you wake up and you want to do. Okay, that's fine for practice. But now, if we want to use innovation to change the course of this country, if we want to use innovation to change the course of this country in the sense that we wanted to create jobs for our young people, we need to give them real life problems. And we are inviting our organizations, not just the 7 partners, but all organizations in the country to share their data sets. ESCOM does allow the use of data sets as long as they are anonymized as long as there is agreement between the partners and those that are using it. Because at the end of the day, if our kids do not have access to the data sets, they're not going to be in a position to innovate. You can't innovate no matter without access to data sets. Data sets are the fuel behind innovation anywhere in the world.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing has been to, appreciate that you have a forward-looking approach to it in the sense that you're already looking to adopt and co-opt these innovations into the relevant institutions. I think that also speaks to, then sustainability as well as long-term impact, and we are not doing things just to, do them and be on TV and, for aesthetics. It speaks to something that can fit the national broader development of Eswatini. Thank you for your time, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Mgoni, and thank you so much to your viewers for listening.
Dr. Mitula, University of Eswatini. Let's go for a net break. We'll be back shortly.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
With under 8 minutes left before we end the show, we have Sanila Svia for our market analysis, who's going to help us go through every market. Sanila, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. In the interest of time, please just go through everything for us consolidated.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Good afternoon to you and a good afternoon to the viewers of Eswatini Television. So we will start today by looking through the US markets. You can see that on Friday, the markets were somehow rebounding following that AI sell-off. We saw that partnership between NVIDIA and OpenAI, causing investors to rethink about the sustainability of, the AI investment and also what it means for the future, whether the electricity, the energy that's going to be needed for AI is going to be there, and whether eventually AI will turn a profit. So now we saw a bit of a rebound on that. But key this week, Ngumalo, is the fact that as we head into October 1, we might see the US government shut down, and purely because the Democrats and the Republicans in Congress are failing to agree on, the fiscal framework and, a stopgap financing measure. So if we go into the 1st of October without a clear agreement between the two parties, then we are going to see the US government shutting down all essential services. So what that now brings to question, Mr. Ngumalo, which markets are mulling all over, is how is this going to affect the all-important, jobs data, which we expect due on Monday, and also we expect the non-farm payroll data to come out on Friday. So what these two figures signal, Mr. Ngumalo, is market bets for yet another rate cut, or if the US Fed are not going to cut rates in October. So we do need these numbers to come through, and the risk of that government shutdown somehow causes those jitters in markets. So I could really see a better rebound in the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500, but they're still on those record highs. But it's just a rebound from the losses that we saw last week. Nothing major, no new record highs. When we move into the UK, Germany and France, What we're seeing then, Nxumalo, is, markets that are being moved by a bit of optimism coming through from the UK and also through from the German markets. Those are defense spending. We know there's a lot of talks around that end of the Ukraine-Russia war, and we do expect Europe to ramp up that defense spending. So now that's propping markets up a bit in Europe, and also, we did see the pharmaceuticals rebound within the UK economy, but still the markets, they are waiting to see if that government shutdown is not going to affect those very critical, economic data that very critical economic data that we expect on Wednesday and also on Friday. Moving into Asia, what we're seeing happening there is a bit of divergence. Both the Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite Index are actually on the rise, but there is a bit of jitters around. We are waiting to see what is going to happen to that economic data and whether the US government is actually going to shut down. So now that normally works in two ways. The government shutdown in the US, and if it's not solved within a very short space of time, does benefit other markets like your Europe and also your Asia, as investors are going to seek alternatives to invest while the situation seems to be a bit volatile in the US. But when you go into the Nikkei, what you're seeing there is a bit of, a bit of some losses, largely being driven by the fact that when you look at the numbers coming out from the Bank of Japan, we saw a bit of a hawkish stance being held by the Bank of Japan, signaling that they're going to actually increase rates in their next meeting, purely because when you look at the labor market data and when you look at the jobs data and the other economic variables within Japan, they seem to be holding on, and there is need to actually preemptively maintain price stability with an increase in the interest rate. So that's what we're seeing happening there. In South Africa, the markets, the metals are doing very well. We're seeing the Johannesburg Stock Exchange hitting some 795 points in today's trade, largely because we've seen a bit of a weakness in the dollar, and that has actually propped up gold and other metals. And you know that the JSE is one of those metal-heavy indices, and also noting the subtle movements within South Africa, in terms of load shedding, the water issues. It seems a lot of those have somehow been held by this GNU, and markets are reacting favorably to that. And, Eswatini, we have not seen any changes in the domestic front. But when you look at gold, that's where the story is. That's where the uncertainty can actually be read. You can see gold has actually surpassed the $3,800 per ounce. Now that signals the fact that we have a uncertainty around where fiscal policy is going to go in the US, and also there is a bit of uncertainty. The dollar is becoming relatively weak, and there are that promise of a rate cut is actually also in the picture, and now that props up gold, and it has actually moved into an all-time high. We're seeing Brent crude oil just coming down a bit to that 68 mark, signaling that there is also a bit of worry when the federal government shuts down. We might see quite a lot of demand for oil going down. And when you come into the currency space, we're seeing relative strength of the lilangeni against the dollar and the euro, and just losing a bit of ground up against the Japanese yen. Now, that's being bolstered by the fact that the dollar is generally weak across the board, and the fact that another threat of a government shutdown looms also just doesn't work well for the dollar. And when you look into the euro, again, the fact that we're seeing gold, which actually tends to anchor our currency, seems to be doing very well, and the currency has actually appreciated on that background. Thank you, Mr. Nguman.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your insights. Very, very informative segment we've just had with our economists, and let's be taking us through the numbers in the markets today, and that also marks the end of the show, unfortunately, but we do come back tomorrow for our second episode of the week. So enjoy the rest of your day, stay warm, and take care. See you tomorrow.